Those who won our independence believed that the menace to freedom was an inert people, that public discourse is a political duty, and that the fitting remedy to evil counsels is good ones. Welcome back to Crayon Box Weekly.
Where we color outside the lines and cut through the noise.
I'm Carl.
I'm Avery.
Let's get started. Well, we've covered our past, we've covered the present, and we've talked about how the court system has been the bastion of defending our freedoms, especially when it comes to the right to protest, the right to peaceably assemble. But what's important is that we move on and we look towards the future. And given the way that things are going now, given our history and understanding how things tend to evolve through the political process, we need to keep a close eye on what is happening in the future and the things that are going to happen in the future. A lot of the things that we talked about last week are going to resonate this week, mainly because they are the things that set the pace for how quickly we will go down a scenario that leads to tyranny, or a scenario that leads to democracy but with suppressed speech, or a scenario that leads to the courts resuming their stance as the bastion of freedom of speech. And so, with that being said, what I want to do is I want to talk about, and Avery, you can tell me that I'm wrong here, but I want to talk about what the future looks like. And we're going to do that through the lens of sitting right here, right now, in this moment. What do we see based off trends in the past that we could be going to in the future?
Listen, it's a scary world. And you and me, we like to throw our ideas out of there. And what happens?
They come true.
Okay, so, do I mean, we need to do it, but I'm not happy about it because it's going to happen. And I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't want to speak it into existence, but I mean, it's gonna happen regardless, I guess.
Well, I mean, here, let me throw this number out there: 45. That is the number of states that have introduced anti-protest legislation in the past decade. 45.
I mean, there's a lot of anti First Amendment shit going on right
Right,
now being
right.
introduced
And there's
in general.
quite literally of the within those 45 states, right? There have been over since 2017, there have been over 350 anti-protest bills introduced in 45 states. And that includes federal proposals, or that doesn't include the federal proposals that are coming through, like the Safe and Secure Transportation of American Energy Act, which makes it a felony to protest the installation of pipelines or protest in vicinity of a pipeline that is punishable with a sentence of up to 20 years in prison. And then there's the Stop Funders Act, which establishes a method for RICO cases to be brought against individuals who are funding and who are supporting and who are organizing the protests that we see around the country. I mean, there's the potential for counter legislation, like the Protecting Our Protesters Act, which holds police accountable for their force misuse. But right now, the trend is the tightening of the restrictions on the right to protest. And that's kind of what we see going on right now. I mean, you couple that with the whole intel surveillance thing. That's not going to go away anytime soon, folks. Those task forces are in existence. I think last week we talked about, or we briefly touched on the National Guard QRF force. And Avery, you are ready to go for that one. So I'll hand this one over to you because this is more of a future thing than it is a present thing, just because of the time that we're recording this episode.
The QRF force, as in those National Guard units.
Yeah,
Yeah, Jesus. So what's happening is there are National Guard units that are going to be formed and educated. I use this because it's probably going to be a hey, go fuck shit up. So educated on basically rounding people up for immigration or anything law, breaking certain laws or dissent or things like that. So think the beginnings of martial law.
I I don't even know if that the martial law thing applies. I mean, I could see, like, for example, the DC takeover where we've got National Guard troops in the city, and the the administration's plan to send National Guard to Chicago and to Cincinnati and to, a whole number of states. Right? I think there's 19 states or 21 states.
The thing is DC special.
It is, but the martial law piece where we send where the administration sends in, like, on force, a National Guard unit or multiple units, thousands of troops into these places, that's one thing. What I see this QRF being as,
Even 20 or 30 people patrolling for laws and dissent and everything like that still could be seen as the beginning of
right,
martial law.
what I'm trying to say is, I'm not arguing with you. What I'm trying to say is, I don't see this special force as anything more than the efforts by the Trump administration to establish a Gestapo or a KGB
I mean, yeah.
that are going to be able to roll into any city in the world, any city in the country, and wreak havoc on the population and establish fear.
I mean, yeah, they're planning on putting it through just about every state, from what I understood. It it shouldn't happen. It's a terrifying
Yeah.
thing. I mean, that's just my opinion.
And then on top of that, you've got these things where people are being labeled. So we talked about the black violent extremists, right? And now we have a new term that's coming out, which is domestic violent extremism. And they're being applied to groups like, if you remember back in Georgia, or I forget how many years ago it was, but Georgia was in the process of building a city where cops could go to train for urban operations. And it was called Cop City. Well, there was a movement called Stop Cop City that was protesting the development of this training facility. And that group, that organization, got labeled as a domestic violent extremist organization, even though they hadn't done anything that was violent or extremist.
Right?
So I think what we're seeing on the intelligence side of things is that we are going to go through, and Intel is going to become better, because it has been better at identifying protests and at identifying members of the protests, and going through and providing law enforcement agencies with the ability to conduct predictive policing. There's going to be issues with pervasive facial recognition. You're going to have geofence warrants. Have you ever heard of a geofence warrant? So
No.
basically, what happened?
Is it
Go ahead.
is it basically in different areas they're just gonna swarm in on? It's kind of like
Kind of. But what
okay.
they do is they take
I was like, I know what I want to say,
they,
but
they
yeah.
take a map and they draw a fence right around it. And then what the warrant says is that anyone that was in that fence at that time, based off of cellular data transmissions, can be arrested for violating the law.
Hmm,
That's the direction that they're going.
interesting.
So I think that over the next 5 to 10 years, we are going to see an enhanced capability of our government to respond to protests. And we're going to see that happening more aggressively, especially the closer that the current administration gets to being out of their administration.
You you know how we're all about.
Go ahead.
I'm
No, go
sorry.
ahead.
No, no, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Because I know what you're about to say. So please go ahead.
You don't, because I'm actually going to go back in time, but go
Oh,
ahead.
okay. Go back in time then. I would stand corrected.
I was like, you know how we're all about fact checking ourselves.
Yep.
So I'd like to go back in time. So what happened was, I like to fact check myself. I like to fact check you. You like to fact check yourself. You like to fact check me. I did not have this up in front of me, and I should have. So that's on me. So on August 25th, Donald Trump had signed an executive order tasking Hegseth with establishing a specialized unit in the National Guard that will be specifically trained and equipped to deal with public order issues. That also shows that he wants to train them. Basically, each state's Army National Guard and Air National Guard units are resource trained, organized, and available to assist federal, state, or local law enforcement in quelling civil disturbances and ensuring public safety and order whenever the circumstances necessitate as appropriate under law.
Yeah. So Gestapo.
Yeah. So it's like it's scary. Very scary. But they're not necessarily a QRF. That's just what they're gonna do. That's what they're for. You're out protesting, guess what's gonna happen?
They're gonna roll up quick.
And they're loaded. They're armed.
Yeah. So I mean, that's just one of those things. Those actions are going to have a chilling effect on protesters, and the protesters going out and becoming public with their dissent. And that's the unfortunate thing that happens with as we develop technology and as we work to push law and order, right? There's going to be that tendency to overstep. Now, the hope is that the court systems will continue to be the bastion of freedom. They'll continue to be the one on the front line who stands on the wall and says, "No, you will not enter." They'll continue to be Gandalf the Grey who stands on the bridge and tells the demon, "You shall not pass." I know I brought my nerdness in there,
I
but
like it. I like it. I like
the
it.
reality is that right now what's going on is they're, instead of being Gandalf the Grey, they're being Sauron,
Yeah. Yeah.
whatever
Whatever.
one,
I know what you're talking about.
who
The S
right
guy, the bad guy.
he wasn't always bad, but he got
He
corrupted by
wasn't.
power, and that's the same thing that's going on. Is that, we're running the risk of our court systems being corrupted by power or just completely ignored by this administration because of the fact that they're trying to maintain the status quo, but they're not doing enough to maintain the status quo. And in fact, they're ruling against the status quo in a lot of cases.
And that was literally brought up, the week of the 25th of August as well. That you know the liberal judges felt like the conservative judges, all they're doing is giving wins, and it doesn't matter basically what it is. They're just bending the knee and towing the line, and they're afraid that more of our rights are going to be stripped from us, just like we're seeing in a lot of other things happening. So yeah, it's scary time.
I mean, at the end of the day, we look at the future milestones that are on the horizon, and we're still on the federal level, right? Like this is just the feds, but at the milestones that are coming down the pipe, you've got anti-riot laws. You have the critical infrastructure felony laws, and you've got the geofence warrant constitutionality. You've got the right to record police, because right now that's going on where police are like, oh, you can't record me because I'm going to arrest you, and blah, blah, blah. All of these things are coming to fruition. And my biggest concern is that Get Low is going to get overturned. And when Get Low gets overturned, first and foremost, folks, let me just say that I haven't seen any indication that there's any law coming out that is going to challenge, or it's not law, but any court case that is going to challenge Get Low. But the very fact that an overturn of Get Low could result in a huge break in how we understand our rights and freedoms, if that does happen, when that does happen, we're going to see a lot more issues at the state level. I mean, at the state level, we've got anti-protest legislation that follow along the same lines of the critical infrastructure felony laws. You have Iowa, Florida, Wisconsin passing, and we've talked about this season, the driver immunity laws, which make it okay for drivers to plow through protesters who are on the streets.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, shit, Florida defined riot as like a group of 3 or more people, and if one individual breaks something, that's a riot. Like, what type of overbroad definition is that? So in other words, if you are going to go out there and you're going to have a protest, you better make sure that you, as the organizer, make sure that no one breaks the law. Because if they break the law, you as the organizer, you're going to get charged, you're going to get attacked, you're going to get arrested. I mean, it's consistently going in that direction. But this takes us back to like my Get Low comment. There's divergent paths, right? In red states, you're seeing an overflow of harsher penalties, broader definitions that make it easier to tell someone that they're being riotous and they're violating the law. And there's coming potential bans on spontaneous marches. Whereas in your blue and more progressive states, you have protesters' rights acts, which ban police use of tear gas, rubber bullets. They outlawed geofence surveillance, things like that. So again, if Get Low goes away, we could wind up seeing situations where you and I were both in red states. Guess what isn't going to happen? Dissent.
I'm not even touching that. When I'm going to go there. So, but I would like to add. Do you want to know a couple more things that happened the week of August
Sure.
25th? Because they're fresh. They're fresh. Well, not really a couple, but I'll definitely hit one. So, you know how we keep saying, "Hey, we're running into an authoritarianism."
Authoritarianism.
Authoritarianism. There we go. I had to. My brain had a stroke. Okay, that's what we're doing today. Authoritarianism, or he's being a dictator, right? That's what has been said. That's what keeps happening. Did you know that 74% of Republicans would like a dictator?
I mean, it makes sense that the whole Jubilee surrounded episode with Mehdi Hassan and the guy. I mean, they openly cheered dictatorship. They said they didn't care that Trump was violating the Constitution because the Constitution wasn't valid. Hell, there was even an individual there that openly proclaimed that he was a Nazi.
Yeah. There's also the bill that was introduced earlier this year in January saying, hey, Trump can run for a 3rd term because it's okay. However, I would like to add, to go back to the dictator, Trump on Monday, the 25th, declared that I'm not a dictator, but a lot of people think that a dictator would be good. So I'm not a dictator. I don't like dictators, but people want a dictator. So,
Mm-hmm. Yep. I don't want to do it, but I will if I have to.
yeah. And I'm gonna put this as quotes. Literally, is what he said. and they say he's a dictator, he's a dictator, and people that the president said of his critics, and then he goes on to say a lot of people are saying maybe we'd like a dictator. I don't like a dictator. I'm not a dictator, but people like a dictator.
Yeah. It's
So spread the seeds.
absolutely. I'm long story short, folks, is over the next 5 to 10 years, we've got directions that we're going to be headed. I mean, there's going to be there's paths ahead of us. There's the slide into to tyranny, in which we lose all of our rights, including our freedom of speech. There's the status quo where we continue to live the way that we're living and deal with the things that we're dealing, or there's the move back to the center, in which we embrace the American way of dissent, in which we embrace political discourse, back to the center in which conversation is had in a manner that isn't polarized. So I would say that we got three options ahead of us, and it's up to us as the voters, as the people, as the citizens, to stand up and make at least one of them happen. I would prefer the move back to the center.
And we're saying dissent, but we're not saying become an insurrectionist and wreak havoc and overthrow the government. We're just saying use your rights that you have, that you've been given while you still can, may I add, to peacefully protest, to join. Even go back into the days of sit-ins and marches, and they even had lay-ins and
Mm-hmm.
sleep-ins. Like, go back to those things. And again, that's not saying that we get it. Your voice hasn't been heard, so you escalate. I
Mm-hmm.
get it, 100%. I understand it. Do I think a peaceful way should be done? Yes, but I also get it. I mean, I understand, but do it while you
And to be
can.
clear, to and just a reminder, folks, this is a brief overview of all the research that we've done. I forgot to plug it last week, but this week I want to make sure that I get this plug in there. And that is, in addition to this podcast and this series this month, we're also going to be pushing out a publication that has all of our research and goes a lot more in depth into the things that we've talked about. So make sure that you head over to crayonboxpolitics.com and download that as soon as it's available. Until next week, stay informed
Stay engaged.
and always color outside the lines.